Converting STL files into usable 3D models. Welcome to another episode. Every now and then someone gives me an STL file and says, can you make an injection mold out of this, or can you mill a part out of this? And the answer is no. STL files are mesh files. They're basically a bunch of triangles rather than nice smooth curves. But you can still do something with them. And what I typically do is take the mesh files and build a brand new 3D object from the mesh file using the mesh file as a reference. So that's what I'm going to do in this episode. Let's head to the computer. I'll load a file and then I'm going to convert that, or I should say, I'm going to design a new part based on the STL file. The STL file I want to work with is a mesh, and that means I can use the insert mesh command to insert it. I'm going to turn on the origin, and you can see that it's currently not close to the origin, so I'll move it to the center to make sure it's easier to work with. And I want to make sure it's millimeters because I know that's the units for this part. Right now I can't do much with it unless I switch to the mesh workspace. I want this to be a solid model. And if I right click, you can see that's not an option. But if I turn off capture of design history, then it does become an option. And I can click on that and convert it into a solid object. Once it's a solid object, you can see I can now click 2 points and get a distance from one point to another. But it's a little hard to work with, and there are some other issues as well. So let me turn off the origin and show you a couple issues that I found with this looking at it before. One of them is, as you can see, it's not sitting flat. Let me go this way. It's at a slight angle. There are also other imperfections, such as you can see that this intersection there isn't quite correct between the cone and the cylinder. So in situations like this, I find it easiest to use this as a starting point to create a new 3D model rather than use this as a model itself. So let me show you the process that I go through to convert it. The first thing that I want to do is take this body here and convert it into a component. I want to have, actually before I do that, I want to turn capture design history back on. And now I want to, it's interesting that it moved the order of these two, but I want to convert this to a component so that I have a separate component for the raw part, the STL. So I'll call this the STL. And then I'll add another part that in a little bit that I'll call the component. Before I do that, I want to fix the fact that it's not sitting flat. So what I'm going to do is I'll turn on the origin and I'll say join, and I'll grab some point there like that, and then I'll just connect it to there. So if we look from the right side, as an example, you can see it's not flat, and just to verify, if we look at the back, it's flat as well. I'll turn off visibility of the joints and the origin, and now I'll go ahead and create that other file component. And I'll just call this part for lack of a better name at the moment. You can always rename it later. I'd like the part to have a construction plane that's a mid-plane between the top and the bottom. So what I'll do is I'll start by saying mid-plane, and I want to make sure that I don't choose any planes that are going to be distorted by the cylinder, which is pretty much any of these planes at the moment. So I'll just say this plane and this plane here. That gives me a mid-plane, and you can see if I look at it from the side, it's dead on, and if I look at it from the back, it's dead on as well. So now that means that my drawing will be aligned with the XY plane. I'll make this the drawing sketch, and now what I'm going to do is I want to create some circles that represent the circles here, tied to this part here. So I'm going to project basically 3 points for each circle. And I'll start on this side and select a bunch of points. And then I'll go about a third of the way around the circle. Now I can go to the circle tool and say 3-point circle, and then I can start creating the circles. And you'll notice an interesting thing, which is even though I selected 3 points, it's not aligned perfectly. So one of the things that I would probably do in a situation like this is once I define all of these and get the model done, I'd come back to the sketch and redefine the sketch so that these are all concentric, and then use dimensions in between them and remove the dependency on the STL file. And that'll give me something that's easier to work with. But this will at least get me started. All right, now that I have the sketch, I'm going to start extruding. So I'll hide this so that I can select a circle. Say extrude, select the middle one, and then I want to make it symmetric. Because if we show the STL again, you can see that it is in fact symmetric. And what I want to do is go up to about there, which looks like it's basically 3 millimeters. So I'll make it exactly 3 millimeters. And then I want to do the same thing with the next circle. So I have to turn the sketch back on. Extrude, symmetric, STL back on. And let's see what this looks like. So this looks like it's probably 2.5 millimeters. So already what I'm doing is I'm trying to make these things regular numbers to try to guess the intent of the person who gave me the file. All right, at this point, you can see I have the same basic design. After I get this all done, I'm going to come back and add some draft to make this ready for injection molding. But let's move on to the next part. So here we have got a cylinder, and one of the difficult things about the cylinder is that it's not aligned with one of the planes. But what I'm going to do is just pull some dimensions off of it. So I'll go ahead and select the STL. And I'm going to add a plane here at the end that allows me to draw some circles to get some dimensions. So I'll say plane through 3 points, and then I'll grab 3 points roughly equal distance apart there, and draw a sketch. And then I'll do a similar thing where I'll project some points that I'll use to create the circles. And this one is a little bit odd because it's not aligned very well, so I think I'm gonna have to figure that out. I think I'll just grab this one here, and it's not going to be precise, but this is a part that it does not need to be precise anyway. All right. Oh, let me go back to that. Because what I want to do is I want to add some dimensions. These are going to be driven dimensions rather than driving dimensions. Let me hide the body here. That'll make it a little bit faster. Okay, so what I will do is I'm going to take a screenshot of this, which I like to do with the snipping tool. And now I have my dimensions that I've moved to another screen so I can remember those. And that's all I need from here. So I'll turn the body back on, and I'll turn the sketch off because I don't need it anymore. The other sketch that I want, or the other dimensions, are going to be distances from like here out to there. And this is giving me a straight distance. So if I press I for measure, then I can select those 2 points again, like so. And now here I can say X, Y, Z delta. And so, again, this is not really showing what I'm wanting. So this is one of the issues with not having it aligned perfectly, because what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to do some calculations or something else. And I'm going to show you another trick that's actually going to work. It's going to be a little bit funky, but it'll work. So I'll go back to this part here and make it visible. And then what I'm going to do is hide the STL. Actually, I'll keep it visible for a second. I want to turn on the origin for this part. So I'm going to make this the active part and then turn on the origin for this part. And then I'm going to create a sketch on that plane right there. So I'll hide the STL, say sketch, and then select that plane. And I want the actual circle I'm going to draw to be right in the middle of this face, as opposed to the way it is in the STL file. So I'm going to select the top and the bottom like this, make the next line a construction, select line, and then put a construction line from here to here. So now that means I can use the midpoint that's right there to draw a circle. And so the first circle, turning off construction, has the outermost circle has a diameter of 5.717, so I'm going to use 5.7 to make it a little bit more even. And then I'm going to want to extrude that. And so I'm going to offset this a little bit because I don't want it through the back there. I really want it to be through here. And there's a way I can do this, but I'm going to skip that for the moment. So I'll just go ahead and extrude this. And I'll select this profile and then make it an offset plane. And I'll offset it, let's see, 1 millimeter, see which way it goes. So I want minus 2 millimeter, I'll make it. And then for the length, I'll just make it 20 millimeters. I guess I have to go minus 20. And I want it to be joined. Okay, now, if I turn on the STL, you'll notice they don't line up exactly. I'm going to make this a little bit shorter. You'll see why in a minute. So I'm going to make that probably 5. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to rotate this object here. I'm going to create an axis through the center of this part so that they're rotating together. So again, I'll hide the STL. And then what I'll do is create an axis through cylinder. This one will work just fine. I'll go ahead and say move copy, rotate, use this as the axis of rotation, view the STL, look at it from the top, and now when I rotate you can see it's a little difficult to get it exactly right. If I move the mouse farther away I can get better precision, but it looks like minus 2.8 is close. Let's see, 2.7. That's actually really close. Okay, so I'll rotate it that way. And what that means now is, and actually I'll move the rotation so it's a little bit earlier. Sorry, capture position. And I'm going to move these two so they're a little bit earlier in the history. And what that means is now this, if we look at the sketch, you can see the sketch lines up much better with the actual part that is there. But it also means that from the side, we can get an idea of how long this needs to be. We can, of course, also measure it, but I thought this is a cool trick. So we can go and say, okay, so it looks like it's about 7.5. So we'll say minus 7.5. And now we have a cone. And so I'll go ahead and extrude, hide the STL, grab this, show the STL again, view this from the right, and it looks like probably about that distance here, and we'll give it 45 degrees. Minus 45 degrees. Okay, that's too much, so we'll try minus 30. And so, again, that's pretty close, but not exact. And I'm going to call it -1 millimeter. The next thing we want to do is draw a circle that's out here. So I want to create a construction plane. And what I'm going to do is, let's see, I will create a plane that is parallel to this plane here, where the distance is to right there. Okay, so that says 17.779 millimeters. That's kind of odd, so I'll call it 18, see what that looks like. Yeah, maybe I'll call it 17.8. And so I'll play around with it. That looks pretty good. And now what I can do is draw a circle on here. And I want it to be concentric with my other circle. The other thing I can do is I can project some lines here to pick up a measurement. So, some points. So I'll pick up these points and I'll draw another circle, but this time with construction through those 3 points. That will allow me to get a diameter. And now what I can do is I can say, okay, these two are going to be equal, like so. And now I have my sketch there. So that means I can get rid of my STL again. And now I can loft between these two, between there and the circle. And at this point, as you can see, I have something that's really close to the STL file that was given to me. But this is a much cleaner design. So it means if I want to do something like go in here and add fillets, like 1 millimeters, it's super easy to do. And actually, I think 0.5 will be nice. So as you saw, the end result of this is a 3D model that is a parametric 3D model made out of fairly simple shapes that's much easier to work with. I can go back and I can add dimensions, make things concentric, add draft if I need for injection molds, etc. This is something, as I say, I run into fairly often, and as you saw, it took me probably about half an hour to actually convert the STL file into a brand new part. Now, that would have been probably a little bit faster had I not been recording it and explaining what I was doing, but that should give you a time frame, a rough idea of how long it takes to convert a part, or I should say redesign a part from an STL file, which, as I've said before, I find to be a lot easier than trying to make the STL file something that's workable. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please subscribe, give me a thumbs up, comment below, and I'll see you next time.